in a time when people are feeling a great deal of anxiety and fear and reservations about the future, at a time when people are going to work and don't know whether or not they will have a job when they get off, and not necessarily because of their performance, but because of what's happening in the economy. At a time when there are challenges, more so than ever before, in personal relationships. We look at what's happening on a crime level and what's happening with our youth. That many times I'm sure that we've all taken time just to stop and reflect many times when we hear what's happening in the news or read the newspapers. Where's all of this leading to? What's going on here? And so I think that now more than ever, we must begin to look at what are the things that we can do that would put us on some firm footing in life, that will enable us to do some things and use some powers that we have, that many of us go through life never ever discovering that we have those things going for us. And part of that, I believe, is knowing what it is your life worth. What is it that gives your life a sense of meaning and purpose? Because once you find that, it puts you in your power place. See, if you know what your life work is, I encourage you to start working on it. If you can't do it all at one time, do just a little bit of it. And if you don't know what it is that you showed up to do, if you don't know why you're here, I encourage you to find out what your purpose is here. What is the meaning of your life?
You must know what you're going after. You must know what you are going after. You can't live your life meandering around hoping you hit something, and whatever you hit, you say, that's what I was aiming at. You have to have a specific target in mind. Most people don't succeed at getting what they're going after because they don't take the time to research what they're going after. They ask for things and then see if they want them. But you have to be careful about that, because if you ask for something, you might get it. That's a very significant question in knowing what you're going after. Before you go after it, ask God, is it yours? Because if it's not yours, then the only reason you're going after it is because it looked good on somebody else. You begin to covet what belongs to somebody else. Because God didn't want us to be jealous of each other. He wanted you to only want what he meant for you to have and not want what he meant for me to have. Now you say amen to that, but there's very few people who live by that principle. Most people want everything they see somebody else with. They buy clothes that don't look good on them. They wear hairstyles that don't look good on them. They buy houses they can't afford because they're trying to keep up with somebody else. But if you really want to be a winner, if you really want to come off as successful, if you really want to be bright, only go after things that are meant for you to have. It will make you look successful. I can make you think I know Kung Fu, as long as you let me choose who I do it to. I kick you in the head if it's the right one. And what makes you look bright is when you pick your battles. There are some things that you don't fight because that's not your fight. You don't get into that thing. You don't pick those battles. You don't covet what you see somebody else fight down because they're anointed to fight that. They can do that. You might not be gifted to fight that area, and you don't want to covet somebody else's battle or covet somebody else's success. Covet, and the other word I want you to think about is the word envy. Because envy is the attitude that you have about other people's success. When you become envious of other people's success, you fail to become everything that God would have you to be. And the quickest way to stop being envious of other people's success is to know that God has something for you, that everything in your life is preparing you for that thing, that there are in your life defining moments. This is a critical issue. Moments that if you handle properly, they are pivotal points that change your life for a lifetime. It is at these moments that if you know what you're going after, everything that you went through before is justified in preparing you for these defining moments. When you come to the defining moments in your life, you can look at the other moments in your life and say, Lord, I wasn't happy about that when it happened, but I'm glad now that it happened. Because I realized that if I hadn't have gone through that, I wouldn't be ready for this. Everything you took me through before was preparing me for this moment, and now I'm ready to go after what God has promised me and receive it at all costs. Know what you're going after. Be clear about your direction. Don't wake up in the morning and see if something's going to happen. Wake up in the morning to make something happen. Get up out of the bed with an agenda. Oh, I lost half of you on that. Because you're just so happy that you got up, you don't care what does happen. You say, well, at least I'm up. But people who get up like that, nothing does happen. And the days turn to weeks. And the weeks turn to months. And the months turn to years. Years of mediocrity is what causes people to be bitter. If you want to get around bitter and complaining people, get around people who are not seeing much activity. They're bitter, they're complaining, they're cynical, and they're jealous because nothing is happening. If you want to get around less gossip and less jealousy, get around successful, busy people. Because busy people don't have time to care what's going on in your life. I have no need to investigate what's going on in your life. I have so much going on in my own life that I'm not interested in what I heard that they said that you thought, that if I thought what you said that I didn't mean if you heard it. The only people who have time for that is people who are not doing anything. And they watch your life like it's a soap opera because they're living their life vicariously through you. What's going on in your life intrigues them because nothing is going on in their life. And if you want to stop that from happening to you, wake up in the bed and know what you're going after. Get up out of the bed with an agenda. When you have an agenda, you don't spend time worrying about how you feel because it doesn't make any difference how you feel. You woke up with something to do.
Positive self-direction says, I know who I am and I know where I want to go. I am accumulating knowledge and experiences and feelings and philosophies that will help prepare me for opportunities that I know will show up without notice. You know who you are and where you want to go. You've been working on the parts of your personality that will make you better, working on your attitude, working on your health, and you constantly see yourself in the place that you want to be. As you talk with yourself every day, how often do you ask, is what I am doing today getting me closer to where I want to be tomorrow? Am I making the daily adjustments necessary? Am I doing all that it takes? Will I keep on doing it until? Direction determines destination. Here's a question you need to ask yourself. Are all of the disciplines that I'm currently engaged in taking me where I want to go? What an important question at the beginning of the month, at the beginning of the week, at the beginning of the day. Because here's what you don't want to ever do. Kid yourself. You know, kid your neighbor and kid me and kid the marketplace if you want to, but gosh, you can't kid yourself. With your fingers crossed hoping you'll arrive at a good destination when you're not even headed that way. You say, well, maybe the wind will take me. Well, there's a chance. But you've got to take charge. You've got to ask yourself often, am I? Am I doing the disciplines that are taking me in the direction that I want to go? I don't want to be faked out here and think I'm on the way to financial success when there's not a prayer, not a hope. I don't want to be faked out hoping that there's someone else who's going to take care of it, take care of me. They're not going to take care of it. They're not going to take care of me. What if all of your negative relatives turn positive? What'll that do for your fortune and your future? Not much. If prices come down a little, what'll that do for your fortune and your future, and your sophistication and your culture? What'll that do? Not much. If the economy gets a little better, what'll that do? Answer, not much. If you don't make plans of your own, you'll fit into someone else's plans. And guess what they have planned for you? You're right, not much. Most people wake up every morning counting on this not much list. And that's why what they have is not much. Not much hope, not much promise, not much progress. Forget the thief waiting in the alley to snatch your purse. What about the thief in your mind? Lazy, not stimulated by thoughts and questions. Don't become a victim of yourself. Ask yourself these questions. Is this the direction I want for my life? Is it someone else's direction? Is it a goal that I have been ingrained with since my childhood? Is it my parents or my spouses or my bosses or my children's? Is it mine? Ask yourself these questions. Debate them if you will. But most importantly, get into the debate of your inner mind. What am I doing that works? What am I doing that doesn't work? Debate it all. Work with your mind to figure out the best possible direction for you. Your self-direction. Your self-direction.
All right, the question is then, how do we find our purpose? There are two questions we have to ask ourselves. Find our purpose in life, and question number one is, what am I passionate about? Passion often is linked with purpose. What I love to do is often what I should do. Once you have passion, you have energy. Once you find your passion, you find your purpose. There is something energetic about it. You have never known a person who was passionate that lacked energy. We talk about high energy people, we talk about low energy people. There's no such thing as like low energy people. If you have high energy, you have passion. If you have low energy, you don't have any passion. You know, some people, they're already dead. They haven't made it official yet. Now, when I say passion and purpose are linked, that is usually the case. It is not always the case. It is possible to be passionate about something that you're not good at. It's possible to be passionate about something that you're not gifted in. Hello? Let me explain. Have you ever watched the tryouts at an American Idol? Woo, they are passionately bad. Every time I see something like this, I always have a question. Whenever I see somebody that's just really passionate about something that they're not good at, I just always ask myself, where are their friends? Don't you think you should just sit down at the table and say, my name is John, I'm your friend, I just want you to know, you can't sing. So it's possible to be passionate about something that you're not good at. But I know this, if you're passionate, that it will increase your energy. And the second thing that I've discovered about passion is it sets us above the crowd. A person with passion always stands out. The world is so full of apathy. It's so full of average. It's so full of whatever. That once you have passion and once you have a sense of energy in your life, it just sets you apart. It distinguishes you. It already gives you what I would call a head start in success in life.
And expect to have an extraordinary life. It's not going to happen. The one breakthrough for all leaders is constant, never-ending improvement. And that means educating yourself and continuing to develop even greater emotional mastery, because that's what affects whether you execute or not. Breakdowns, it's certainly not something I experience. It's not because I'm so talented or so brilliant or so fearless. It's just, you're like an athlete. You're an athlete. Yeah. You're in shape. Yeah. Right? You're not going to have a reaction in your body like somebody who doesn't take care of themselves. Right. So, you know, I don't believe in emotional intelligence. I think it's useful, but I'm more interested in emotional fitness, because intelligence is a capability. Fitness is a state of readiness. Interesting. If you are fit, you can take that demand right now and you can deal with it. You can deal with that physical stress, that emotional stress. Same thing's true with psychological fitness, emotional fitness, right? So I'm pretty fit. And part of that is not because I'm so smart. Part of it is that taught this for decades. I remember I had a woman who came to one of my seminars in her, I don't know, early 80s probably, and she would run in this room, 5,000, 10,000 people. I think it was, she went a couple of 10,000 person events, and she would get in this front row and fight her way through there. And she'd jump and go for it. And one break, she came up to me, I was signing a book for her, and she says, she goes, Mr. Robbins, I've seen you at like 8 of these. She goes, I've seen you like when you're really, I know, I can hear your voice, you're hurting, or you haven't slept. And she goes, you always seem to be so up all the time. How come you're so up? And I said, well, part of it is I attend all these seminars. So I'm teaching it. So there's a fitness in that. But there's also, I've buried 3 fathers and 1 mother, and that affects your life. I've had a physician look me in the eye and say you have a tumor in your brain. Wow. And so I've had those moments that when you've had extreme stress and you push your way through it, you build psychological muscle. It's like it takes a lot to knock me off. In the early days, we didn't have $50,000 to keep the doors open. How do we do it? Then I had, graduated to $5 million. I graduated to a partner of mine who kind of didn't do things well, and I ended up owning $100 million because I had to take on his debts. $100 million. But when you do all that stuff, now my companies do $5 billion, a year. So you keep expanding what I would call really the circle of the threshold of your influence. Sure. Everybody has a threshold of control, and if you get beyond it, you kind of freak out. So it takes a little bit more. I can't. So you don't have breakdowns. I don't have a breakdown. Do I get pissed off or get frustrated or tired? Yeah, but a breakdown, honestly, no.
So how do you handle it if you get tired of something?
I sleep when I can. Okay, cool. I mean, it's honestly, it's pretty simple. But when I've had challenging times, I have so many tools. Yeah. I pull them out. And mostly it's just like you as an athlete. You don't just physically break down. Right. You take care of yourself. So
you're constantly training that.
I think most people don't train their mind and emotions. It's like, I think the most powerful muscles to me are not physical. They're as strong as important as they are. It's like faith is a muscle, courage is a muscle, determination is a muscle, playfulness is a muscle. Passion unexpressed weakens. Faith untested gets smaller. Yeah. So I'm always, I call it deep practice. I'm always pushing myself to the edge, and pushing yourself to the edge makes you stronger.
I think I can boil it down probably to 3 or 4 words: money, power, ego, habit. That's a short answer. A friend of mine who is my friend until we have this conversation in academia, I've asked him once, I said, why evolution, for example? The DNA evidence, very recent, in the last 5 years, the DNA evidence no longer supports the theory of evolution as the mechanism for human origins. Evolution is a fact. And I want to be very clear about that. As a geologist, I've seen it in the fossil record, plants, animals, insects, some primates. Something happened 200,000 years ago, and the theory breaks down when it comes to humans. And the DNA shows us that. The DNA shows us very clearly that we did not descend from the...
Well, of course there are. Half the planet lives on $2.50 a day. The challenge is the people that complain that they're the 99% against the 1% are actually the 1%. He goes, Tony, what are you talking about? Those people down there who were in those tents downstairs, a few years ago, and if you watch them typing on their iPhones and having a Starbucks drink, they think that they are really suffering. But in reality, if you're in poverty in this country, you're in the 1% of earners in the world. You're the top 1%. So if you really care about the 1%, you got to care about everybody. But the real challenge, I think, is not so much money as it is that the world has changed. If you are a blue-collar worker, if you're an unskilled worker, meaning you're not tech-oriented, you're not cognitively driven in your job, you're going to have trouble. And I don't care what the politicians say about bringing these jobs back. There are no jobs to bring back. And the reason is because technology is making labor less valuable. And that's why jobs don't produce as much unless you're high cognitive, high decision-making, high tech. Those people have no problem. There's a 1% unemployment for people who make $100,000 or more. It's so tiny because they've learned to become more valuable. I always tell people the most valuable lesson I got from my mentor, Jim Rohn, was I asked my father worked 2 jobs. We were always broke. We had no money for food. And we lived in a community we moved to, which was, I thought they were all rich and we were on the other side of the tracks. It was lower middle class, but compared to where we lived before, these people seem rich compared to us. And I just didn't understand it. And Jim said to me, Tony, it's not about the value of your soul. It's about the value of you in the marketplace. And your father's skills are not that valuable. He was an underground parking attendant, and he would take people's ticket and make change. Well, the research now shows, it's being done at Yale, it's being done overseas in England as well, and they found that 40% of all jobs they project in the next 10 years are going to disappear because of technology. It's going to be replaced by an algorithm, it's going to be changed. You know, all these guys on Wall Street, you're seeing all these algorithms take over, and they're getting rid of all these traders, right? It's changing radically in these hedge funds. There's 3 million truck drivers. Self-driving cars are here. In the next 5 years, they will be the standard, certainly within 7 or 8 years. Are you going to hire someone who can only work 8 hours a day and sometimes gets drunk or can make a mistake when you can buy a machine, write down the machine, and be in a position where it works 24 hours a day driving? But no one is telling these drivers this, and they have to retool now. So technology is the biggest challenge. Labor is less valuable because of efficiencies with technology, and it's going to get better and better for technology, which is scary when you think about what's going to happen for jobs. So I say to people, you got to participate in your own rescue. You've got to retool yourself. The idea that Bernie Sanders has of providing free education sounds wonderful, but the education he wants to do is community college. There are no skill sets in community colleges today, for the most part, that are going to prepare you for the economy or a job that's there. So what is that going to do? You're just going to waste more money, more time. We need to retool ourselves. The government's not going to do it for you. And a great leader in a company is retraining their people all the time. The training never stops, because that is the innovative, creative marketing edge, is your own people.
Most companies do less training today than they did 20 or 30 years ago.
It's crazy.
So where do you get the training?
I think they have to self-educate. I mean, I'm an example of that myself. You have to say, what's an area that I want to become masterful in? Because dabblers will never have any financial freedom. You know, if you're going to run a company, you got to find what is your niche. What is it you're going to do better than anybody else? Every one of us individuals have to say that and then say, now, where do I get that education? In a world that we live in today with the internet, where there's education from all over the world, from MIT, from Harvard, online, and there are people you can go to work for who you could become a mentee of. There's just so many approaches, but you can't have a standard education.
Neanderthal, for example, their genome, we can now rebuild their genome and compare theirs to ours. We can actually, sounds like Jurassic Park, the movie. Science fiction, but it's science fact. We can pull the DNA.
And check your percentage of Neanderthal.
We can pull the DNA from the bone marrow of fossilized remains of beings that we are supposed to be descended from and compare their DNA to ours. We didn't descend from Neanderthal, and it shows that we did appear on Earth about 200,000 years ago.
Where did we come from?
Okay. Well, to answer the question, why aren't we sharing this? When I asked my friend at the university, I said, why can't you share this with your students? And he said, Greg, you don't understand. He says, if I shared that, he said, it would invalidate my 40-year career as a professor. And I said, no. I said, it would do just the opposite. It would demonstrate to your young students how valid and relevant science is, because it's designed to be constantly updated, and you're doing that. It wouldn't invalidate. He said, well, think how much money it would cost to change the textbooks. And I said, my brother, I said, you're living in the Stone Age. They're not using textbooks. You changed it on the server, and you've changed it everywhere. And he said, well, think of all my class notes I would have to change. And I said, well, that's your job. But that was an example for me of it's a habit. It's a habit, but it's also threatening. And this is why I think it's so important, Brian. It's more than a philosophical conversation. As we globalize, as we push ourselves together and we see the fear of what that means, cultures coming together in different ways of thinking, we also see a rise in hate. And hate is only possible because of a way of thinking. Rachel Carson was an author in the 1960s. She wrote Silent Spring. She was one of the first environmental authors about the use of the pesticide DDT back in the 1960s. And she made a statement. I read this when I was a kid, and it was so powerful. She said, we only destroy the things that we don't value. We have been taught that human life has very little value through the theory of evolution, that we are a random process, genetic mutations. The textbook says that life is a behavior pattern that chemical systems exhibit when they reach a certain level of complexity. That's the definition of life that we're giving to our young people in school today. And it is such a sterile definition. It leaves no room for the specialness and the preciousness of life. And so our young people, through the video games that are very heartless, very violent, through the media, through the television, where are we instilling into our young people how precious and special life is? And if we're going to change that, when we begin to see what the DNA is telling us, it tells us something far beyond random genetic mutations is responsible for us. And that's, I think, where the change in thinking must begin.
Well, it's interesting that you asked me that question. That one of my answers for people, when they say, hey, how can I get better at detaching and control my emotions? I tell them to start training jiu-jitsu. Because you're going to get tapped out in jiu-jitsu. Your ego is going to get smacked around so hard, you're going to lose your mind. And the madder you get, the more aggressive you are, the more you're going to get beat down, and the worse it's going to be. So you have to learn to control your emotions. No doubt about it. And then what you have to do is you have to start practicing it all the time. You have to start paying attention to the red flags that go up. When I start raising my voice at you, I go, oh, that's your emotion. Get mad. And for me, like the minute I feel some sort of anger, some sort of jealousy, some sort of frustration, most of the time I go, oh, you're getting mad. That's your ego. You're getting emotional about this. Take a step back and listen to what the other person's saying. Take a step back and try and see it from their perspective. Take a step back and try and understand what they're trying to say. Because sometimes, if you're not a very articulate person, you're just making me mad. It's only because I don't understand what you're trying to say. Take a step back. Let's talk through it. So pay attention to, I always talk about when you're sending an email to someone and you're typing like this, don't send that email. That's not a good email to send. That's an emotional email. Wait, write it out, fine, and then save it and read it later, and you'll realize, oh yeah, I was really mad about something, or I was really frustrated. So how do you do it? You practice it. You pay attention to your emotions and you get control over them. Have kids. If you have kids, you'll have to learn to get control of your emotions.
How do you gain influence and respect? Like, what's that process?
Very similar to when we talked about trust and building trust and giving trust. If I want to gain the ability to influence you, well, then what I have to do is give you the ability to influence me. And when I say, hey, here's what we're trying to make happen. Here's what I want to do. And you say, well, I think we should do it like this. You know what I should say? Okay, well, let's take a look at that. The more I allow you to influence me, the more open your mind gets for me to influence you. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to allow you to influence me, and the more I allow that to happen, the more influence I'm going to have. Respect, same thing. If I treat you like you're a plebe, like you don't matter, you're not going to respect me at all. But if I treat you with respect and respect you, when you try and talk to me, I listen and I respect what you're saying and I try and understand it fully, then your respect for me is going to go up as well. So when you want to earn respect, give respect. When you want to earn influence, give influence. When you want to earn trust, give trust. All those three are related.
Whatever position you're at, you want to be the bull. And I don't care if you're in the mail room or if you're the person behind that camera, that I'm going to be better than anybody else with that camera, and I'm going to be the best mail carrier and the person who comes up and is the most organized and does it the most professional way. You can be the bull at any position you're doing, and it's just telling yourself, I'm going to do this better than anybody else. I don't care what the job is. I don't care what you do. You be the bull at what you do. It's just the sport of this is what I do every day. And people say, why do you do this? And I just said, because what would I do? I mean, if I can't come to the office and solve problems and fight with everybody and conquest something, conquer, then then what am I going to do with myself? I'm going to sit home and die? I mean, that's what I enjoy doing. This is my basketball. This is my game that I play. This is my pickup Monopoly game, whatever you want to call it. Okay, I love going to the office and leading people and trying to conquer something. That's what I enjoy doing. It's sport. Totally, you're exactly right. This is steps to get to the next level. Now, if I don't pull any of that off, have I reached that point in life where I'm happy? Yeah. I don't feel like, after I bought the Houston Rockets, and once again, who gets to own 100% of their team in their hometown? There's probably not, of all the major 100 sports teams, there's probably not 5. So I feel very fortunate. So if nothing else is accomplished, do I feel pretty good? I feel okay. I really do. I really do. And I thank the good Lord and all the people that helped me accomplish it. But what you just said is happening. I'm taking the next steps right now to get to the next level.
Everything in life is a lot like that. Emotions are a good example. Either you master them or they will master you. Something is always going to master and something is always going to serve, whether it's your emotions, your enterprise, or your project. Difficulty will serve or master. Fear, anxiety, inclinations, they all serve or master. We must learn to send our inclinations to school, to teach them how to behave, how best to serve, and to learn their true value. So that is key 1. Get in charge. You be the master. It pays to take a look often and examine all the parts of your life and all the things that you are involved in and all the things that are affecting you so that you can get an intelligent answer to the question, who's in charge here? It's so easy when you get something started to unwittingly relinquish the reins of authority so that it begins to subtly but surely take over. Soon you become the servant. It dictates, it demands, and you respond. So let's turn this whole challenge around. You take over the reins of authority. You subtly but surely take charge. You dictate, you demand, and you will be delighted to see early signs of positive response from your enterprise, your business, and your life. The next time management essential is to learn to say no. I had some difficulty here. It is so easy to say yes to everything, trying to be a nice person, and then have to spend all that time trying to come up with excuses to get out of the obligation. It's one of the great time wasters. How much better to say, no, I don't think I can, but if that changes, I'll give you a call. And isn't it a better feeling to call someone with the good news, I can come, than with the bad news, guess what, I can't come. When in doubt, learn to say no. A friend of mine, Ron Reynolds, has a good saying, don't let your mouth overload your back. That's a great thought to keep in mind when scheduling your time. Here's the next tip. When you work, work, and when you play, play. For time efficiency and for that good feeling that comes from doing something without any guilt feeling. Don't mix the two. Many years ago, I used to say, I've got to get my family to the beach. I've been promising to take them to the beach. What are they going to think if I don't take them? Now guess where I am while I'm thinking about the beach? Right, at the office. Now I finally get my family to the beach, but at the beach I'm saying, I should be at the office. I have so much to do. Now I've messed up my beach time with the family by thinking about the office. So I learned this lesson. Make a play day, and a work day, a work day. Don't mix the two. Sure enough, if you say I'm going to take off at 3 o'clock and go play, guess what you are thinking about all morning? Taking off to go play. So don't play at work and don't work at play. It's a great rule to follow to ensure that your time is used more effectively. Now I know all of this has to be modified to fit your particular situation. No one rule will apply to all, but keep the main thought in mind. Separate work and play. When I take a lecture tour to Spain or Africa or Australia, I make it a work trip. Every day is filled with lectures, speeches, and business conferences. Then I arrange a play trip, because when I play, I really want to play. A builder friend of mine now has the luxury of working a week and taking off a week. That's what he calls it. Work a week, play a week. However, with weekends on either side of his play week, it's really 9 days. So he works 5 and takes off 9. That is luxury, right? However, the 5 days he worked, he really worked. Secretaries, accountants, architects, superintendents, long days, around the clock, into the night, 5 heavy, full days. Then he's off to play. So when he worked, he really worked so that he can save all the playtime for a longer stretch. Now, perhaps we can't all do that, but we can learn to practice the skill of separating work and play.
Repeat after me, please. It's possible. Yeah, see, the easiest thing that I do now is come up on stage and speak. That's easy. But the most difficult thing that I've ever done, and it took me years to do,